Radha Radhe, and a spiritual good morning to one and all, regardless of where you're joining us from. Welcome to Bhagavad Gita Study. We'll get started with our session today after the opening invocation prayers, seeking blessings from Guru, Lord Krishna, and Radharani. I'll bring up the screen momentarily and you can follow along with the slides. And then we'll take a look at the flyer for today and get into today's content. Hopefully you can all see the cover slide coming up momentarily. And let's go ahead and seek blessings. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwarha, Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudev Vasutam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Vande Vrindavananandam Radhikam Parameshwarim Gopikam Paramam Shuddham Hladinim Shakti Rupinim. Once again, welcome everyone to Bhagavad Gita Study, Radhe Radhe, and let's get into today's content. I'll actually switch over to the flyer that some of you hopefully saw before class. May have seen this similarly once before, perhaps, for the regular participants. Others may have wondered something different. Indeed, we'll do a slightly different session today to sort of catch up on the verses covered thus far for chapter 11, which, if you hopefully noticed on the top right, verses 1 to 9. That's what we've done in the prior few weeks. And in big, of course, it says, let's converse, or as we've said before, convene and converse. The verse here, V, that capital, of course, meaning we're going to talk about the different verses. What we'll just do is we'll spend most of this session today actually just hearing from participants and just engaging in dialogue or discussion. Give you a few, seconds or minutes even to look through these 9 verses and on the spot, spontaneously, one by one, tell us which verse or verses are very endearing to you or very meaningful or something where you had what they say as an aha moment. You learned something that you didn't know so well before, or either in the translation of the shloka or from Swamiji's commentary, you were able to get much more clarification or elucidation. So that's what we'll do. As I said, I'll give everyone a couple of minutes maybe to look through their Swamiji versions of the Holy Bhagavad Gita, look at your notes or anything from the recap videos, and uh, you know gather your notes or thoughts on 1, maximum 2 verses that you think are special to you. Maybe you've been able to implement something from there, though again, this is chapter 11, the beginning few verses, so we'll have to see how that connects. Maybe you want to share a Sanskrit word or phrase that is special to you that you learned, or an English word or phrase that again is something useful. So again, take a couple of minutes. We'll get you settled in. In the meantime, I'll send out some of the usual links in the Zoom chat window, especially for any new participants. And let's talk about everything. So I've just sent in the Zoom chat window. For those who know regularly, it's the links for the various slides that we have on the screen week after week. That's via the first link, which is, in case you're new today, that's the community portal page for this specific Bhagavad Gita study series. It's free, simple sign up and login process, and week after week, you'll get all the material there. Second is if you are still joining via the regular Zoom portal, then we recommend you fill out the attendance tracker. That's the second link. Again, if you're new or haven't filled it out in a while, it does help all of us stay connected and help you navigate, the landscape of the various sessions and everything that JKYog and the Radha Krishna Temple of Dallas offer. Of course, if you've started using the new portal, which is, the JKYog online classes link, great. You don't actually have to fill out the attendance tracker. Final link is for, as I mentioned, the recap videos that Mummy and I record week after week. That's via that third link, along with other useful material as well. So, with that said, again, let's convene and converse. Chapter 11, verses 1 to 9. Obviously, looking for some eager, enthusiastic volunteers to help get started, and then we'll continue from there. So, wonderful. Dalji, I see your hand is raised. We'll start off with you. You can tell us, which verse or verses you're referring to. I'll bring them up on the screen and we'll kind of run through that. Feel free, take, 4 or 5 minutes per person, and we can have additional dialogue as needed as well. Radha Dalji?
Radhe. Okay, for verse 3.
Verse 3. Okay.
Is that in the range? Yeah.
That is in the range. 1 to 9
Okay.
is right there. 3 is there. Let's bring it up. And so I'll go to our ebook right here, chapter 11, verse 3. There we go, Dalji.
So what I really liked about being in class with you, Gaganji and Meenuji, for this verse is that it's about Arjun asking this question, asking for Sri Krishna to show his cosmic form. But attention was drawn to one of the words, the Sanskrit words, drashtum or drishtum, because it means to see. And when I heard that, because I teach yoga, we tell people to cast their gaze in a distance in some poses. That's called drishti, when you just look forward like that. So I made a connection between drishti and drishtum because they're both about seeing. And even your catchphrase was picture, please. So it really helped to anchor in my mind the idea of looking for Krishna, the possibility that Arjun has to really see him in his true form. So I like that verse a lot. Thank you, Gokin.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dalji, for getting us started. And lots of good points you mentioned, right? So, chapter 11, verse 3, the desire that Arjun has to see. And as you rightly said, right, different variations with the grammar. I like the connection you made with your yoga, classes that you teach and the practices, drishti versus drashtum. So again, all that is to see. And in fact, we might hear from other participants perhaps on other variants of to see, because we've seen at least, I guess, two different words. And there's a lot that's, of course, covered in this context. And good reminder there. Thank you for the catchphrase picture, please. Yeah, that is helpful to all of us, Dilji. And certainly helps us all keep on, continuing in this journey as Arjun is soon going to, of course, get that, revelation. Thank you again, Dilji. All right, we have Sudhakarji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Gaganji.
Sudhakarji, are you able to come on video by any chance? Get you at least for a few seconds if possible.
Yes. Okay.
Excellent. Sounds good. Sudhakarji, and remind us, today, where are you joining us from? I know you alternate different countries sometimes.
No, I'm from Saudi. I'm in
Okay.
Saudi now.
Okay.
Only
Currently
during
not.
vacation, I go to India.
Right.
Otherwise, usually Friday, Saturday is holiday for me, so
Right.
no issue.
Perfect. Okay. Sounds good. And which verse would you like me to bring up on the screen?
Sorry, actually, I thought for me all verses are knowledgeable, but
Okay.
what I understood is the more important takeaway for me of the 9 verses I thought I should share or something. Is it like that, or no? You want to talk about only specific verse?
Specific, if
One,
possible. If you are able to pick one, maybe that's a little more special or meaningful to you.
I would pick up the word Pashya because
Mhm.
Lord Krishna was talking about this particular word about 3, 4 verses, the behold. So it gives me the lesson learned is, we have to have patience. He's for everything. Krishna is indirectly saying that, I think 3, 4 slokas, 4, 5, 6, he says, behold Arjun. So he's cautioning, so don't get worried, be patient to see my divine form and use this is what I learned. I thought to implement it. I'm not saying I'm implementing it, but I would like to develop this particular word. Yes, we need to have the patience for anything there. Not eagerness. Eagerness is one thing, and patience is other thing. So I like this word, Pasha, so far. That's what I thought to share. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sudhakarji. Indeed, yep, it actually is a good segue or continuation from what Delji had started off with, right? Drashtum, to see, and then Pashya also we have seen, for lack of a better term, but we have come across Pashya, which means to see, in earlier chapters as simply see in terms of sight. But here now, as you said, chapter 11, verses 4 and beyond, there's that additional stress on behold. And behold, in fact, maybe I actually will not say more in case Bilji wants to add something later, but he had, shared with us, I remember a couple of weeks ago, something that's very important about what behold entails. And Sri Krishna, of course, uses that several times. So Sudhakarji, as you rightly noted, it is to, of course, absorb all that. It is with, of course, special vision that we'll probably discuss also. But again, it is a lot of stress and that importance placed on the use of behold in this case. Absolutely. So that is great. You know what I'll do? I do see Bilji's hand raised. In the meantime, let's get there. Yep. Radha, Bilji.
Radha, good morning, everybody. I'm looking at verse 6, and I don't have any profound insight about this. It's more of I'm particularly intrigued by part of it. It said that we have one word for snow, just snow, and the Eskimos have 11 words describing various variations of snow. So I always think of the wind as the wind. That's it, just the wind. But 49 wind gods, what could that possibly mean as far as the intricacy and the I guess almost profoundness of the wind? So I thought at some point to explore that more and get an explanation. That's just a comment. If anybody has any insights, I'd be interested in hearing. 49 Maruts. What are they all doing?
Yeah, the floor's open if anyone wants to add to that. If not, maybe I'll chime in briefly, but we'll wait a little bit if someone wants to add anything here with regards to, as Bilji said, right, 49 different Maruts, different kinds of course, the wind gods. And thanks for sharing that fact, Bilji. 11, you said 11 words for snow that the Eskimos have?
Something around that number.
Yeah.
So they're much more perceptive about something that we are not particularly perceptive about. We just see something and we give a one-word description, but apparently there are many variations, according to the Eskimos, of snow, and each variation has its own name or word.
Very interesting. Yep. Daleji, not to put you on the spot, do you happen to know any of those and just curious? Or yeah?
Do you mean the words for snow?
Perhaps, or maybe why they're different or anything? Just curious.
I don't know the words, but I can only imagine because they're in the environment where they have snow probably all months of the year. There certainly is wet snow. Even in English, we have sleet and we have a dry snow. People that ski have various relationships with snow. The Eskimos have a very special relationship. They make their houses out of the snow and the ice. So I'm sure there are wonderful comments there. And as far as the wind goes, you always have to look for something that you know or someone that you know so that you can actually receive more knowledge about something. So out of all of those 49, there is a Maruti. And it was mentioned, I think, by you or by Minuji that this is Hanuman. Even from the Hanuman Chalisa, we hear Maruta Tulya Vedam. So if I had to ask for help to figure out who what these wind gods were up to, I would hope that Hanuman would help.
Yeah, well said. Thank you for sharing that, Dilji. First, as you mentioned with the Eskimo and snow part, indeed, it actually might segue well into perhaps the verse I might briefly talk about at some point. But indeed, right, based on the different circumstances in the environment or the fact that they see it all year round, the different, forms maybe or uses or purposes, that could probably stress light on what the different kinds of words are. With the Maruts, yes, good reminder there, Delji. In fact, if I bring it up on the screen here, we had said, both humorously and seriously as well, that nobody needs to, of course, memorize any of these names. And we promise, even next week when we continue with the next few verses, which would also mean there's a recap quiz on the prior verses, no memorization needed for all these names. So truly, genuinely meant that. But yes, I do recall. Thank you, Dilji. Yes, we mentioned Maruti for sure. That might be one of the easier ones to remember. It's just an extension of Marut. Maruti, we know, is one of the names or appellations for Lord Hanuman. So certainly he can help and bless us, as you said, Dilji. And I think, yes, we'd also mentioned that, especially for those who are very familiar with India, whether it's travels or staying there at longer points in time, they'll easily recognize Maruti in a different sense as well. It's, in fact, I should share for those who may not be familiar, the automobile manufacturer Suzuki, the Japanese one, they had tied up in the early 80s, I believe, with their Indian counterpart, and that is Maruti. And that, I think, for all these decades continues to be it has the largest market share. So those cars are known as Maruti or Maruti Suzuki. Lots of models, very, very popular. So Maruti, again, now more people can perhaps connect to it. Speed, wind, it's to do with that efficacy perhaps as well. While we're looking at this, what I can encourage is that people can look at, of course, all these 49 names and see if any other ones perhaps maybe ring a bell or you may have heard of them in some other context. There's perhaps very few because, this is the first time, at least in the Bhagavad Gita, we're seeing this full enumerated list of all the Maruts. But if you do spend the time to look at all of these closely, I think Aditya, many of us, of course, may even know people with that name. It's a common Indian name. And then there may be others, but of course, there also is a Dhruv. Again, I'll let you all research if there's any connection to other Dhruvs that we have come across or we know. So like that, there's a couple. I mean, coincidentally, there's a Bhim as well. We also know, no doubt, Bhim, in fact, was also obtained. Kunti had her blessing and she got him through Pavan, the wind god. He also had a lot of learnings and blessings from Lord Hanuman. So maybe there's a connection there, and maybe there's one or two others. So one can spend a bit of time on those. What I will add is, I think interestingly, though it's not in the happiest of moments always, but especially in North America, so some of you here would certainly have experienced or relate to this. There is lots of different weather changes, and we often are impacted, or we see or hear in the news things about not just thunderstorms, but hurricane-like winds. Of course, there's unfortunate damage in many situations, howling winds, roof damage, etc., much more. Ever since you get into more about learning about these maruts and all, maybe one appreciates their role over there. Because remember, the maruts are collectively known as these wind gods, and they are you know it's a mixture of aggression and calmness as well. I mean, they are, of course, celestial, they're special. Sri Krishna talks about them as being part of the opulences that Arjun will get to see, but at the same time, they play a role. In the scriptures, it's mentioned that depending on their role or context, they will slice through the clouds and cause rain to fall, or of course, howling winds, etc. So just a different perspective. The next time, it is some insane levels of wind, etc., the mind might connect and think of the maruts. One might also seek, of course, blessings, and then indirectly, directly from Sri Krishna as well. But it ironically builds a connection from a scriptural or spiritual standpoint as well, which remember 24/7, we're trying to get into that mold. And I still find it a little enlightening that even in such situations, of course, that's why we also need help. these situations help us bring out even more of that, development of our consciousness. So something there for Maruts. Thank you again, Dilji. All right, let's see. Sudhakarji, Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe, I was just trying to check about this Maruts in the Swamiji's app. If you don't mind, I would like to read, but in essence, I think it gives a good idea to all of us. Is it okay?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yep.
The 49 Maruts are significant figures in Hindu mythology, often referred to as wind gods. They are described as powerful and benevolent forces that bring good to the universe. According to the Puranas, the Maruts originated from the sage Kashyap's second son, Diti, who desired a son more powerful than Indra, the king of the celestial gods. When Indra used a thunderbolt to split Diti's feet, it transformed into multiple fetuses, which became the Maruts. I think this is where the 49 numbers has come, I think. The Maruts are associated with various aspects of the nature, particularly the winds, and are known to perform vital roles in maintaining the balance of the environment. They are often depicted as youthful, energetic beings who ride on the clouds and are connected to storms and rains. Their names include Sattvajyoti, Aditya, Satyajyoti, and many others, each representing different qualities and aspects of the winds. Overall, the Maruts symbolize the dynamic and the life-giving forces of the nature, playing a crucial role in the cosmic order. Thank you.
Indeed. Yep. Thank you so much, Sudhakarji, for sharing that. Yes, there's actually that story with, Kashyap and Diti and the 49 fetuses, or the splitting into 49. There's that aspect. And as you said, the wind gods. I think I had used the word calm, but the word Swamiji uses, which is much better, of course, is about benevolent. And a good point you make, Sudhakarji, that regardless, they help with balancing forces or environments of nature, etc. So again, that does show how harmony is established with their different roles. Okay, next up, let's hear from Bilji. Radhe Radhe.
Right. Well, not to beat this into the ground, but I just looking at verse 11:6. I just lit on one of the names of the Maruts, Chetasa, Chetasa. And interestingly enough, that word appears in verse 8:8. And it's translated as by the mind. So I don't know where that's going, but it's rather interesting. And I'll do some follow-up, and maybe if anything interesting comes of it, I'll email you.
Okay, sounds good, Bilji. Yep, thank you for noticing that. Again, I also am not aware, and I might be wrong, but if someone else with even more connection or growing up in India has a reference, that would be helpful. It's a good observation you make, Bilji, because Chetasa or Chetasam, etc., is to do with the mind or with consciousness. Here, I don't know if it is the Chetas, which is to do with speed, which is often also the name of a horse. And so I wonder if it's that. But again, I could be wrong. I don't know. I mean, Rupalji, Manishji, Purnimaji, someone, if Sudhakarji, even if any of you knows, feel free to chime in. But it is a very good observation you've noticed, Bilji, Chetas, etc. Right? We'll do that as research homework, weekend homework. Yep. Okay. For anyone who's joined us in between, just a reminder, we are doing, convene and converse. We're just actually picking a verse or part of a verse from chapter 11, verses 1 through 9 that is special to us. Something where you learned something meaningful, or you've been able to implement something from there, or you just want to highlight some names or a Sanskrit or English word or phrase that is dear to you. That's what we're discussing. So we've had some good participation so far. What I'll do is, while the rest of you think about your contributions, oh, okay. Rupalji's got her hand raised, so I'll hold off on saying what I was going to say. Rupalji, are you able to come on video for a little bit? Excellent. Radhe Radhe, good morning. And unmute you. Let's see. I think you can. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Radhe Radhe, everyone. Good morning. I'm gonna, I guess the verse that I enjoyed, one of the verses was verse number 4. And it talks about how Arjun makes a humble request. So even though he was a devotee of God, he had so much faith, he believed everything that Sri Krishna had, revealed to him so far, as far as the knowledge. He still feels that, he needs to make a humble request instead of telling Sri Krishna that, just show me your cosmic form. And that is one of the greatest virtues. I believe Swamiji has said it so many times that humility is one of the greatest virtues for a devotee of God. And, without being humble, we cannot receive the grace of God. And the interesting thing I think I feel is that if you look at the first verse in chapter 9, and I'm sorry, I'm going back to different chapters, but I just found the connection so, interesting and so true. Arjun says in the first verse in chapter 9 that, or, the Supreme Lord, so God tells Arjun that because you are not envious of me, I will reveal to you my confidential knowledge. So, at that time, God realized that Arjun doesn't envy Shri Krishna, and he's not going to envy or, not believe anything God tells him. And then in chapter 10, the first verse, the Lord says that I will, again, tell you my divine teachings or talk about his opulences because Arjun is his beloved friend. So even though Arjun was, his friend, Arjun was not envious. Arjun showed humility, and only because of that, he got the divine grace from God, giving him the vision to see the cosmic form. So, I just find that connection so interesting that until, we can be great devotees of God, we can have unwavering faith in God. But if we don't have humility, then we will not be able to have the divine grace from God and receive his vision, his cosmic form, which ultimately I think if we ever reach there, which I think all of us will one day, we will receive his divine vision and we will be able to see him. But again, humility is so important and we have to be humble. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you so much, Rupalji. Yep, Radha Radhe, and appreciate your sharing that. And in fact, the connections, as you said, right? Chapter 9, chapter 10 as well. In fact, much earlier, I think, if I remember correctly, it's chapter 4, perhaps, where Sri Krishna also mentions that he is, Arjun's the devotee with a friend. The non-envious part, as you said, chapter 9, very essential. And in fact, it actually doesn't stop here in chapter 11. We'll get to this in a few chapters. You'll see these themes recurring, because these are reminders from the Lord to us about why Arjun was that chosen person to get that wisdom. And as you're also saying, Rupalji, how we can strive to be like that. So there'll be a chapter much later where we'll talk about, we know bhakti will come up for sure, but then in contrast, Sri Krishna will also talk about demoniac natures, etc. And again, we'll see the stress placed. Okay, we now know the difference between the two kinds. And again, it reminds us the importance of being a friend of the Lord, a devotee, not envious. Obviously, there's faith, all that connected together. So really helpful observations, Rupalji. Yep. I will ask one question to either you or anyone. I purposely stopped sharing the book right now because there's one other important aspect in the verse you have picked. So you had picked, right, chapter 11, verse 4, the element of Arjun showing his humility. How does he explicitly display that or state that? something for everyone. Look for a minute at chapter 11, verse 4, and tell us how Arjun does that, because that is also a very, very key thread for this specific verse. And the hint again I'll give is, how does he actually say that? It's something explicit from Arjun. All right, Dilji, Radhe Radhe.
Rupal, did you have anything before I talk?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. That's okay.
Well, in the verse itself, Arjuna is referring to the Lord as Lord of all mystic powers. He says, if you think I am strong enough to behold it, then kindly reveal your imperishable cosmic form to me. So that strength to be able to see the Lord and not just faint completely, to be awake to experience it. I think that's the other aspect that you might be looking for. Gagan, tell us, please.
Very true. In fact, the first part you said, you got it spot on itself, Dilji. Yep. His words are Arjun to the Lord. If you think I am strong enough to behold it, right? So he's humble. He's displaying that. We've seen the evolution of Arjun's growth and that humility, but he just also doesn't expect the Lord to, gather that from his behavior or his presence on the battlefield or as a listener or as the Lord acknowledges as a friend, a devotee, etc. Arjun stresses it with his own words, and that is this additional, I think, emphasis on he acknowledging. In fact, it's very important that self-awareness is there. I believe it was, I don't know, yesterday or day before, in fact, I just happened to see one of the shorts, I think, that Swamiji has during his morning walks in the different cities. And someone asked a question, I'm forgetting what exactly it was, but I believe Swamiji's answer was about self-awareness. He gives the example of someone who needs some kind of assistance and is not going to a doctor of a special kind because others observe it, but the person, him or herself, doesn't acknowledge it. And that's a lack of self-awareness. Here, this is Arjun truly, truly being very, very aware and therefore stating that only if the Lord thinks he is strong enough to behold that view, that vision, then please grant it. So that really does stress a lot about that. And the other thing I'll say is thank you again, Dilji. And Rupalji, as you rightly said, yes, Swamiji, Maharajji, they keep stressing this as well. In fact, I'll ask one more question. Many of you, I think, know this. We often hear from Maharajji and Swamiji, be humbler than what? There's a very, very common example as part of stories as well as prayers and mantras that we hear about. So let's try Rupalji.
They always say, be humbler than a blade of grass.
Okay, let me store that. And Sudhakarji, how about you?
It's the same one as Raji has mentioned. That's what I know.
Yep. Yeah, well done, both of you, Rupalji, Sudhakarji. Indeed, yep, be humbler than a blade of grass. That is often there. Does anyone know where we hear it or what it is in Sanskrit or Hindi by any chance? I also don't know it fully, so you're not alone, but we can all research it. It's the one where Trinadapi Sunechena, I think, and it comes in the mantras that we say after the artis are done at the temple. So some of you who, of course, follow, right, the satsang on Sundays, after that, one of the Panditjis will run through several, different prayers, and we finally end off, right, remember, with the Om, the Mata mantra, right? Tam Soma, etc., Jyotirgamaya, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. But in that whole progression, somewhere in the middle, we get the one about Trinadapi Sunechena. There's other references as well, right? Maharaji has that in his writings, so some of you may know that. There is sometimes I think in the Bal Mukund classes or books as well for kids, the comparison also given is to a tree, which again, ironic, right? Blade of grass, super small, we keep stepping upon it. Tree, super big, we perhaps don't do much, but the tree relentlessly, regardless of weather, is always giving shade to weary and tired travelers, especially right in older times and much more. And there's that element of humility there as well. But indeed, as Rupalji, Sudhakarji, you said, the blade of grass, we all have to strive to be humbler than that. Difficult, but we all try. Rupalji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Just one more thing I would like to share. I also remember Swamiji's lecture from his lectures, and also some of the documents. He always mentions that ego edges, basically represents edging God out, while humility or humbleness attracts His grace. So that's one thing that has always stuck with me, and it's very helpful to remember that if you want to attain God, or come close to Him, He does not like us to have ego, and He wants us to be humble. Radhe Radhe.
Yep, very good reminder, Rupalji. Thank you so much. EGO, ego, edging God out. Swamiji has talked about that. I think he's mentioned it maybe in the commentary somewhere in chapter 2, but he peppers that in a lot of his lectures as well. And in fact, early starts again. He does that to a lot of the kids and the youth in discussions as a way for them to learn from a very early stage. In contrast, humility, of course, attracts God's grace. Yep. Sudhakarji, your hand is raised. I don't know from before or not, but anything else you wanted to add?
It was from before, but I was just searching that humble of grassroots. Sunisena, I think the word, Sanskrit word. I was searching that
Yeah,
earlier.
Sunichena. Yeah. Thank you so much for looking that up, Sudhakarji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, we'll continue to think through other connection or verses. As I said, I'll share one now that, as I said earlier, is a good, I think, segue from what Bilji mentioned and Dalji also added on to. In fact, Bilji mentioned snow and then 11 or certain number of terms that Eskimos have for different kinds of snow. I see in the Zoom chat window, Dalji has sent a link for that. Thank you so much. Everyone, please feel free to take a look when you can after class. And so, in fact, I think that leads to chapter 11, verse 5, where, we know that Sri Krishna has told Arjun, chapter 11, verse 4, Sudhakarji talked about it, Rupalji talked about it. Behold, we know that that is coming up, and Sri Krishna is inviting or offering to Arjun that he can now behold, right, that cosmic form. But again, what is to be expected in that? We know in chapter 10, of course, all those different 80 plus personalities, entities, descriptions of the opulences have been listed. But then still, one needs some kind of reference. So here, Sri Krishna gives the first of those. So back to like the snow example, various shapes, sizes, maybe colors as well. Sri Krishna lays that out with that basis for Arjun, that yes, you can behold, you can see the magnificence, etc. You have to do it, of course, with rapt attention and focus. And he now gives something quantifiable and qualitative, which again, to us in the material sense, I feel is very, very essential. Oh, okay, there are hundreds and there are thousands of forms, whatever that means in this case, but the forms have various shapes, sizes, and colors. So then the mind, whatever finite knowledge, limited intellects we have, we're able to start putting some kind of reference to that. Again, I'm going a little literally, but then developing it into something more abstract, certainly spiritually. But if you remember, we had the flyer. At this stage, remember, Arjun has not yet seen the cosmic form of Sri Krishna. He does have information on what he might be able to see in terms of opulences, but as a real basic layman, as a as a child, as a bal, kids, youth, adults, as we evolve, we can see Okay, something might be square shaped, something triangular, circular. Okay, so those are shapes coming up. Those develop into forms. Oh, I can have something small, I can have something large. Sri Krishna will have all of that encompassed in him. And of course, different colors. We have the spectrum, we have our thoughts and sight. So all that will help him slowly develop that, appreciation for what that sight is going to reveal. And I think one other connection one can make is that this helps us all with our constant practice of meditation. Remember the Rup Dhyan meditation that we all try to practice or strive towards. It is, as Swamiji always reminds us, we need a basis for that. What is that basis? We need forms, certainly. So shapes, sizes, colors come into play here. And then in addition, of course, we have not just forms, but we have leelas or pastimes of God. We have attributes, etc. So I think there's a great connection here with chapter 11, verse 5, also with regards to meditation and how we've already heard from Sri Krishna and shall hear later also that that is how we're supposed to, of course, learn more about him and, of course, with self effort and then God's grace, eventually know him. Comments, thoughts, others? And if not, we'll also invite others who haven't had a chance yet. Praveenji, if you can, Manishji, feel free. Let us know if there's a verse in chapter 11, 1 through 9, that is special to you, or any part of it, any word, phrase, any concept. As I kind of hinted at the start of class or even mentioned, this is sort of an interesting transition right now because we've done chapter 11, verses 1 to 9. They're all about, right? Drashtum, Pashya, see, behold, etc. And a little bit, of course, about what Arjun will get to see in Sri Krishna. But unlike a lot of the other chapters, thus far at least, they're not about, necessarily, let's say, practical tidbits or spiritual, activities or exercises, right? Which in fact makes this let's converse or convene and converse exercise a little harder, perhaps, because in a different chapter, someone might say, "Oh yeah, I've been implementing, working without the fruits of my actions." Or someone says, chapter 6, I've been working on the aspect of meditation or yoga practices, breathing, etc. So yes, it does make it a little difficult, but that actually challenges us in hopefully a positive way as to nevertheless, what can we take from these 9 verses thus far? And all of you, many of you have contributed so far and shared some great, experiences and observations. And I'm sure there's more as well. So again, chapter 11, 1 through 9. Any verses that have been covered or not covered that someone wants to share anything about? Even if you've gone, you're welcome to again, of course, right? Yeah. And you can make it longer than a verse also. Feel free. Sudhakarji, Radhe Radhe.
I think one of the verses talking about the strength of the eyes. I think 11.8. Lord Krishna is saying that, right? You can't see my cosmic form with your eyes, so I will grant you the divine vision. So this is one point I think probably will help us in the Rup Dhyan meditation also. We just can't see the full form of the God. Oh, we may be thinking that we are seeing that, but without His grace, we can't even see in that meditation also. This is why my interpretation. I'm not sure whether I'm right or wrong, but I often experience this thing. Sometimes you meditate it. For example, I don't know about others. Um, when you meditate on the God or some form of the God, say today you meditated one aspect of the God physical form. The same thing if you try to do it the next day or maybe after a couple of days, you may not see the same thing exactly what you have experienced in the previous day. I don't know whether you experience like that. This is my feeling. So then I thought, okay, my surrenderness is not that much pure. So that's why I'm not able to see that clearly or the same one. I don't know whether you can share your thoughts, Gaganji, on that.
Yeah, I was actually smiling even more than normal, perhaps, when you were saying that, because I think it's very, very true. And I think there's at least two different, reasons perhaps for that. That's what my understanding might be. There may be others as well, but I fully agree that you're right, Sudhakarji. And I think what you're also saying is certain days, right, when you're meditating, you actually have some very, very special or even more endearing than normal, you know, basis or vision, right, of an attribute or a description or form of God. And you think, oh, great, I can hang on to this. And like you said, a couple of days later or even the next day, you just can't. And in fact, in those situations, correct me if I'm wrong, you end up pushing the mind even more. Maybe the eyes start straining also, and you think, oh, somehow can I get that form or that roop again? And you can't. Well, what's interesting to me is A, it shows again there are infinite forms for the Lord. So it actually invites us to think of something else. B actually is the fact that, yes, maybe as you said, Sudhakarji, that day our element of surrender is not as strong, which is probably due to distraction of the mind, could be things like that. It is really a test of faith in some sense. And therefore, I feel it again shows that by ourselves, we can only do so much. God graces us, then the rest of it happens. But I'm fully with you, Sudhakarji. It does get challenging certain days when you feel, oh, can I bring back that view or vision, I had a day or two ago. Daleji, I know your hand was raised. I don't know for this or something else, but please carry on too.
I was just looking at verse 9. When Meenuji was here, she emphasized, and also in the recap video, and now Sanjay is speaking. So I looked at it a little bit closer just now, and I realized that it's something like miraculous to notice that both Arjuna and Sanjay at the same time were having this divine vision of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Sanjay, by the grace of his guru, Vedvyas, had what was referred to in Swamiji's commentary as far-sighted vision. And so he was able to see what Arjun was seeing. So I like the way Meenuji and Gaganji always tie everything directly to Swamiji's commentary and the verses here in the book. But I'm just having this thought that it's amazing that simultaneously Krishna was able to give vision of himself both to Sanjay and to Arjuna. I hadn't really even thought about it before until today that it was like that, but it's very interesting. That's all.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Dilji. Yep, indeed, I remember your Mummy mentioned that. And in fact, I think, even overlooked accidentally while mentioning it that yes, it's no longer Arjun talking at that stage. In that verse, it is truly Sanjay. And good point, like you mentioned, Dilji, in parallel, again, only because of the grace of God. Krishna to Arjun, Krishna through Vedvyas to Sanjay, they have that vision. In fact, somewhere later, I think it's going to come much, much towards the end, of course, Swamiji does mention, or for those who are familiar with the Mahabharata, will see one other contrast that comes up with the, I guess, duration or extent of Arjun's vision versus Sanjay's vision, but miraculous that they both were able to see everything. And I think from there now, as you said that, Daleji, I'm also thinking that there's another takeaway for us here, which is because of Sanjay having that special far-sighted vision, we know the answer. This is not a trick question. Who got to benefit directly from Sanjay's vision? Right? So tell us, anyone can tell us the answer there. It's not a trick question, right? Daleji?
That almost brings me to tears for some reason, but it was the blind, supposedly unable to see King Dhritarashtra, who also was, the son of the Kurus, that was able to see what was going on. So that is in line with what I was saying. It's so miraculous that there's such a simultaneity, all at onceness is
Yeah.
one of the attributes of God that is being expressed in this vision to Arjuna. So even though Arjuna in some ways was singled out because of his skill, his friendship, his humility and humbleness, and so many other attributes that he had, it seems that God cannot but all at once nourish everything and everyone. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, really well described, DLG, indeed. And yeah, it can evoke that emotion, right? Truly, in this case, a blind person, right? Dhritarashtra, but beyond physical blindness, also that spiritual blindness or ignorance at that stage. So, like you said rightly, there's that simultaneous aspect. There's the God, nourishing everything, everywhere, everyone, at once. And I think this also connects to one of the verses in an earlier chapter where God says, right, he's not partial or biased towards anyone, right? Of course, he loves his devotees much, much more, right? But he's otherwise fair or equitable. This comes up in one of the verses, and it shows here Arjun, noble, versus Dhritarashtra being ignorant, yet they both were able to also get that view. In this case, Dhritarashtra is hearing it and then imagining it, but I think it's stressing again the fact that even with ignorance or demonic natures, the Lord can give us and will give us knowledge, wisdom, blessings, and it gives an opportunity to steer paths differently. I think as you were saying that, Dilji, this comes to mind. Yep. Thank you so much. Okay, other thoughts or comments?
Even Dhritarashtra, after getting that knowledge, or through the Sanjay, he still, at the end we know that he still does not believe. He still tries to crush Bhim.
Right.
When they're so.
Yeah.
In a way, you can say just having what you call the divine darshan of the God is just not adequate. Like I was thinking, this is my perspective. I don't know. If suppose, okay, I get a divine form darshan of the God, so what? So next what? So that has to be in the mind constantly, nirantar, right? That's what Maharaj used to say, nirantar, ananya. So as long as that is not sticking into the mind, just getting a glimpse is not going to serve. This is an indirect lesson from the Bhagavad Gita. This is what I understood. Even Arjun got the divine vision, right? So in the next, at the end of the 17th chapter, he still gets, after the war, he gets still confused and he still has that pride. I have killed all these people, like that he starts, and then Lord Krishna says, shows him that barbaric. Through the barbaric, he shows, answers the question. Actually, who has won the war? I think you know that one, right? So this is
Yes.
just another takeaway for me. Just having the divine darshan of the God is not our final goal. We should be contemplating on it, try to please on it. That's what I think I learned from Maharaj's lectures or Swamiji's lectures. Thank you.
Yes, very, very true, Sudhakarji. Thank you for sharing that. It is, the stress on constant, nirantar, ananya, 24/7, right? In simple English terms for all of us, that is how our consciousness and devotion or bhakti has to be. So yeah, just vision or knowledge, of course, is not going to be enough. It's the combination of everything and on a constant basis. So yeah, as you said that, I was also getting the vision of, Dhritarashtra trying to crush and actually crushing that Bhim statue. We all have seen perhaps that episode or imagery somewhere. And it shows, of course, fleeting thoughts or vision are not enough. It has to be all the time. And it also shows that it's not easy. It may not happen, like as we often say, in a single lifetime. We also know, of course, Dhritarashtra's background. Some of you might know the story. Of course, he asks about why he had to go through that thing, the whole episode with his sons. So it goes back to many, many lifetimes before. But again, constant 24/7. That is what one has to strive towards. Indeed. Okay. Final 3 or so minutes. Other thoughts or connections anyone would like to make with any of these chapter 11 verses 1 to 9? Next week, of course, we'll continue with the regular set of verses. So we'll build up from chapter 11 verses 10 and beyond. But remember, we'll have a recap quiz. So last week when we met, it was verses, I think, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So get an extra week. Please make sure you look through those 4 verses. And we'll start off, of course, with a recap quiz for those. Other than that, I'm just thinking, usual announcements, most people are aware of that. So we talked about the portal, of course, Zoom versus the online classes portal. Hopefully you're having a good, smooth experience with that. And then certainly, we're getting into, summer mode, summer season. So a little over a month away, right? We'll have family camp. Swamiji will be here in Dallas at the Radha Krishna Temple. So those of you who can participate, please do, both in person or online. Many of you have been there, right? In person or online as well. So that's coming up. It's July 4th through 10th. So the US holiday weekend and beyond. And of course, Swamiji's tour continues. His book got released, as some of you are hopefully aware. So Ishavasya Upanishad. Hopefully you've had a chance to get your hands on one of the copies of that and add to your spiritual and scriptural learning as well. And yeah, I think that's that. Of course, satsang continues. So tomorrow will be Sunday, 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. usually, Dallas Central Time, and that translates into 9 p.m. India time. Okay. Dilji, final thoughts?
Just a question. So is it preferred that we go to the JKYog site and enter the classroom from there?
Yes, the plan is to fully transition into that. And it helps with, several things. It's all centralized from the technology standpoint. It actually eliminates the need for people to fill out the attendance tracker. And it helps with a lot of like analytics as well, I think, for the technology team. So those are some benefits. But of course, more secure and robust as well from a back-end angle is what I understand. So yes, if each of you is able to do that, please do that. Yep.
Thank you, Kaka.
Thank you, Dilji. All right, with that, let's wrap up. We'll take blessings from Radharani. So join along, please. Jai Jai Shri Radhe.
Radhe,
Jai
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 Shri
Shri Radhe,
Radhe.
Jai
Jai Jai
Jai Shri Radhe.
Radhe. Thank you all so much and for your wholehearted participation. Had a great discussion for an hour. Convene and converse. Chapter 11, verses 1 to 9. And as always, we look forward to meeting next week.